Fisher writes about shame with such haunting detail that it solidified my decision to study this emotion that we all experience and all hate talking about. Hi, we are back with a video about shame and some of Brene Brown's insights. I just love how she has studied for so long human emotions and vulnerability, and she wrote this book called Atlas of the Heart that we're going to be reading from today, and we're going to be in chapter 8, page 132. It's called Places We Go When We Fall Short. Shame, self-compassion, perfectionism, guilt, humiliation, embarrassment. So we're going to read some definitions that she wrote before going into the topic that we're going to talk about, which is we're going to focus on shame today, just because it's been something that we've been talking about in some videos lately, and I feel like we can learn deeper with Brene Brown's words. Okay, let's get started. Shame. I am bad. The focus is on self, not behavior. The result is feeling flawed and unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. Shame is not a driver of positive change. Shame is not a driver of positive change. You get back a quiz and your grade is F. Your self-talk is, I'm so stupid. Guilt. I did something bad. The focus is on behavior. Guilt is the discomfort we feel when we evaluate what we've done or failed to do against our values. It can drive positive change and behavior. You get back a quiz and your grade is F. Your self-talk is going to, the party instead of studying for this quiz was so stupid, versus I'm so stupid. So it's focusing on behavior. Humiliation. I've been belittled and put down by someone. This left me feeling unworthy of connection and disgusted with myself. This was unfair and I did not deserve this. With shame, we believe that we deserve our sense of unworthiness. With humiliation, we feel we don't deserve it. The student sitting next to you sees the F at the top of your quiz and tells the class, "This idiot can't even pass a quiz in here. He's as stupid as they come." Everyone laughs. You feel dumb and enraged. Embarrassment. I did something that made me feel uncomfortable, but I know I'm not alone. Everyone does these kinds of things. Embarrassment is fleeting, sometimes funny. Your teacher is handing out quizzes and you come back from the bathroom with toilet paper stuck to your shoe. Shame. This is a quote from Antoine Quentin Fisher from Finding Fish. I hated the internal wounds, the words that said I was worthless and unwanted, the teasing, the ridicule that echoed in my ears and shattered my insides into dust. If given the choice, I'd have picked a beating over being shamed. Reading Antoine Fisher's book, Finding Fish, was a sliding doors moment for me. I had just started researching shame and I was getting pushback from every direction. Everyone thought it was too difficult a topic to study. There were very few research articles on shame 20 years ago. And the first one I found warned that the decision to study shame had been the death of many academic careers. I devoured Finding Fish right when it came out. Fisher writes about shame with such haunting detail that it solidified my decision to study this emotion that we all experience and all hate talking about. So good. Number 1, we all have it. Shame is universal and one of the most primitive emotions that we experience. The only people who don't experience it are those who lack the capacity for empathy and human connection. 2, we're all afraid to talk about it. Sometimes we can feel shame when we just say the word shame. But it's getting easier as more people are talking about it. 3, the less we talk about it, the more control it has over us. Shame hates being spoken. When we hear the words shame, our first thought is either, I have no idea what that means and I don't want to know, or I know exactly what that is and I don't want to talk about it. We can also make up that shame is something that happens to other people, not us. But shame isn't all of us. Here are some examples shared by the research participants from our early study on shame. Shame is hiding the fact that I am in recovery. Shame is raging at my kids. Shame is bankruptcy. Shame is getting laid off and having to tell my pregnant wife. Shame is my boss calling me an idiot in front of the client. Shame is not making partner. Shame is my husband leaving me for my next door neighbor. Shame is my partner asking me for a divorce and telling me that she wants children, but not with me. Shame is my DUI. Shame is infertility. Shame is telling my fiance that my dad lives in France when in fact he's in prison. Shame is internet porn. Shame is flunking out of school twice. Shame is hearing my parents fight through the walls and wondering if I'm the only one who feels this afraid. Connection, along with love and belonging, two expressions of connection, is why we are here. And it is what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. Shame is the fear of disconnection. It's the fear that something we've done or failed to do, an ideal that we've not lived up to, or a goal that we've not accomplished, makes us unworthy of connection. I'm unlovable. I don't belong. Here's the definition of shame that emerged from my research. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, or connection. Shame thrives on secrecy, silence, and judgment. If you put shame into a petri dish and douse it with these three things, it will grow exponentially into every corner and crevice of our lives. And it's kind of cute because she illustrates it in here, a little petri dish and the little extra ingredients: silence, secrecy, judgment, and then just kind of feeds the shame. And here there's like a little dose of empathy, and apparently a tiny dose of empathy will reduce the shame. I think that's what she's going to talk about on the next page. Oh, there. The antidote to shame is empathy. If we reach out and share our shame experience with someone who responds with empathy, shame dissipates. Shame needs you to believe that you are alone. Empathy is a hostile environment for shame. Self-compassion also helps us move through shame, but we need empathy as well for an important reason. Shame is a social emotion. Shame happens between people and it heals between people. Even if I feel it alone, shame is the way I see myself through someone else's eyes. Self-compassion is often the first step to healing shame. We need to be kind to ourselves before we can share our stories with someone else. That's so true. As I mentioned in the previous chapter, Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion has been a life changer for me. Neff runs the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, where she studies how we develop and practice self-compassion. According to Neff, self-compassion has three elements: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. This is how she defines each of these elements: self-kindness vs. self-judgment. Self-compassion entails being warm and understanding toward ourselves when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than ignoring our pain or flagellating ourselves with self-criticism. Self-compassionate people recognize that being imperfect, failing, and experiencing life difficulties are inevitable, so they tend to be gentle with themselves when confronted with painful experiences, rather than getting angry when life falls short of set ideals. Common humanity vs. isolation. Self-compassion involves recognizing that suffering and personal inadequacy is part of the shared human experience, something that we all go through, rather than being something that happens to me alone. Let me read that again. Common humanity vs. isolation. Self-compassion involves recognizing that suffering and personal inadequacy is part of the shared human experience, something that we all go through, rather than being something that happens to me alone. Mindfulness vs. over-identification. Mindfulness is a non-judgmental, receptive mind state in which one observes thoughts and feelings as they are, without trying to suppress or deny them. We cannot ignore our pain and feel compassion for it at the same time. At the same time, mindfulness requires that we not be over-identified with thoughts and feelings so that we are caught up and swept away by negative reactivity. I highly recommend that you take her self-compassion inventory at theselfcompassion.org. The 4 elements of shame resilience: recognizing shame and understanding its triggers, practicing critical awareness, reaching out, and speaking shame. Number 1 is recognizing shame and understanding its triggers. Can you physically recognize when you're in the grip of shame? Name it, feel it, your way through it, and figure out what messages and expectations triggered it. This is why Neff's concept of mindfulness is so important. We can't pretend it's not happening or get swept away, which is really easy with shame. Practicing critical awareness. Can you reality check the messages and expectations that are driving your shame? Are they realistic, attainable? Are they what you want to be or what you think others need or want from you? Reaching out. Are you owning and sharing your story? We can't experience empathy if we're not connecting. Speaking shame. Are you talking about how you feel and asking for what you need when you feel shame? Silence, secrecy, and judgment fuel shame. Shame is not a compass for moral behavior. It's much more likely to drive destructive, hurtful, immoral, and self-aggrandizing behavior than it is to heal it. Why? Because where shame exists, empathy is almost always absent. That's what makes shame dangerous. The opposite of experiencing shame is experiencing empathy, the behavior that many of us find so egregious, I don't know how to pronounce this word. Today, I don't even know what this word means. Egregious. It means outstandingly bad, shocking.
Egregious.
Egregious. Okay, now we all know. Or maybe you did know, but I didn't know. All right. The behavior that many of us find so egregious today is more about people being empathy-less, not shame-less. Rhonda Deering, our senior director for research, has also studied shame for decades and was one of my early heroes in the field. Her summary of how empathy and shame work together, or actually do not work together, is incredibly helpful. Empathy is an other-focused emotion. It draws our attention outward toward the person's experience. When we are truly practicing empathy, our attention is fully focused on the other person and trying to understand their experience. We only have thoughts of self in order to draw on how our experience can help us understand what the other person is going through. Shame is an egocentric, self-involved emotion. It draws our focus inward. Our only concern with others when we are feeling shame is to wonder how others are judging us. Shame and empathy are incompatible. When we feel shame, our inward focus overrides our ability to think about another person's experience. We become unable to offer empathy. We're incapable of processing information about the other person unless that information specifically pertains to their view of us. Wow, that's so good. And the next part of this chapter is perfectionism. And the first sentence of it is, shame is the birthplace of perfectionism. So good. I can't wait to dive deeper into that. I think that's good for today. We talked mostly about shame. Read through her book mostly. That's what we did, really. And it's just so amazing. There's so many nuggets in here that are awesome. And I just love that she researched that. And I love that she researched this topic that didn't have a lot of articles back then, and that people said it ruins careers to study shame. Isn't that interesting? Because that's the emotion we don't want to talk about. And it's so cool to learn that everyone experiences it. And it's so amazing because it just shows it. Because when I was sharing on the personal testimony of my relationship with shame and how I was burdened by it for a long time, there's been an outpouring of vulnerability on that. All the comments are personal experiences and stories. It was so amazing. We got to connect and to empathize with each other. And that literally was healing. So thank you all for commenting and for sharing vulnerably. That was super brave. So I just want to thank you for that. And we're in this together. It's such a cool reminder. She writes so beautifully that it was just a great reminder that we're not alone. And even when we think we're experiencing things, the circumstance might look different on the outside, but these emotions are human, they're universal. And I can't wait to dive into the perfectionism, because I've struggled with that. I talked about it on a video like a few days ago. And it's so interesting to see the connection between shame and perfectionism. So this is her book, Alice of the Heart. She did not ask me to do this. I just picked it up, and I love the cover. And yeah, if you want to dive deeper into the different emotions, there's amazing stuff in there that I have yet to read as well. So yeah, I'll post it down in the link if you're interested. All right, I will see you in the next video. Bye.